national anthem is the nation-state's official musical symbol. But unofficial anthems are also possible for nations that precede, exceed, and transgress the limitations of states. This situation highlights that the word nation can refer not only to a sovereign state, but also a community of people who share a common cultural, ethnic, linguistic, historical, and/or geographic identity. In this paper, I draw from post-colonial studies to think through transnations, which is a term proposed by Arjuna Padarai to account for the deterritorialized cosmopolitan identities of diasporic communities. Bill Ashcroft later extended that concept to include connections that surpass the boundaries of the nation-state, even when they remain within the boundaries of that state. My aim here is to nuance Benedict Anderson's rather famous idea of nations as imagined communities to go beyond the nationalism of sovereign states. In order to do so, I'm sharpening Anderson's underdeveloped idea of unisonance, which is the collectivistic feeling experienced by people hearing and/or singing a national anthem. Unisonance helps people connect the members of an imagined community by providing a musical commonality to people who cannot all have a face-to-face relationship. That's how national anthems are meant to function, unisonance. This paper is an investigation of unofficial anthems as oral signs of transnations. My case study focuses on Cantonese people, whose homeland centers on southern China's Guangdong province. And you can see here in the map of China, the green area is the Cantonese homeland. It's not just Guangdong province, it kind of overlaps a few things, but it centers there. They speak dialects of Yue Chinese and have a global population of approximately 73 million. Hong Kong is the de facto capital of their transnation, long serving as both media hub and east-west portal. During a century that began in the 1850s, there was general migration from southern China to Southeast Asia, but trans-Pacific journeys to the Americas and Australasia were almost exclusively undertaken by Cantonese people. Hong Kong's port helped them to establish durable migrant networks throughout the British Empire and American territories. Circular processes of migration allowed people to maintain ties on both sides of the ocean, resulting in what historian Henry Yu calls the Cantonese Pacific. So that's the translation. In this paper, I argue that Cantonese people feel unisonance when hearing the melody General's Ode, allowing it to be experienced as an unofficial transnational anthem. I should point out here that this tune is a labeled melody, meaning that it gets used in a lot of different situations with a lot of different variations, but that there are also unrelated melodies that have the same name, that are also labeled melodies. So I'm referring to one specific version of General's Ode. The song's prominence is connected to Hong Kong cinema's longtime use of that piece as the theme music for a turn of the 20th century martial arts master from Guangdong by the name of Wong Fei-hung. Master Wong and his song have become Cantonese institutions, appearing in over 100 productions since the 1950s. I contend that the tune's enduring popularity is tied to issues of abstract nationalism, pointing to Cantonese ambivalence about China as a modern nation-state. The research for this paper draws on mixed methods. Fieldwork in Toronto, Canada gave me the idea of a Cantonese anthem. More properly, my consultants gave me this idea, which I pursued with virtual ethnography online. I also did musical and linguistic analysis comparing different versions of the song. And in what follows, I summarized music history in relation to Wong Fei-hung, discussed people's comments on the song, analyzed the relationship of lyrics to melody, and finished with a discussion of how music, film, martial arts, and nationalism intersect. According to Yu Siwa, the oldest source for this particular version of General's Ode, or at least the oldest written source, is a manuscript dated 1814. As you might expect, with a name like that, it was a martial-style piece and quite suitable for its military namesake. After the fall of the Qing dynasty in 1911, the emergence of modern Chinese orchestras called for new repertoire, especially music supporting nation-building efforts. Shanghai's Great Community Music Society were key players in this nation-building musicking. In 1929, they scored an arrangement of General's Ode as part of a suite called Grand National Music, going on to make recordings of it in the 1930s. The invented tradition of the Wong Fei-hung song began in 1956, when one of those Shanghai recordings was used as the opening theme music for Hong Kong Kung Fu movies featuring Master Wong. These films proved popular, and eventually Cantonese musicians recorded new versions and kind of changed the flavor to be more Cantonese as they went. Over a span of 7 decades, a plethora of Hong Kong films and TV shows featured Wong Fei-hung, but the 2 most important series are from very different eras, marking an evolution of Cantonese identity. Guangdong holds a Guinness World Record for the most films in a series, with 68 feature-length movies between 1949 and 1970. So if you notice, the Wong Fei-hung series started in 49, but the song wasn't used till 56. They used Beethoven before that. That didn't stick. This long-running franchise established a link between song and character. Guan's portrayal of Master Wong was the epitome of a Confucian patriarch, upright and disciplined, but also magnanimous, very traditional. His world was old-time Guangdong, full of nostalgia for an era that was rapidly fading into the past. Various titles were released throughout the 70s and 80s, but the most successful films came between 1991 and 1997, when auteur filmmaker Tsui Hark produced a 6-part series titled Once Upon a Time in China. Part of the new series' success was a reworking of the theme music by composer and lyricist James Wong. This version of the song completed the Cantonization by adding Cantonese lyrics. It became a cantopop hit, enhancing the popularity outside of cinemas. And I translate the title of James Wong's version as A Man Should Self-Strengthen. Notably, these Once Upon a Time in China films were released in the years immediately preceding Hong Kong's handover from Britain to China in 1997. The new version of Master Wong is younger than before, and although he still embodies Confucian virtues, he negotiates a world of modernization rather than nostalgia. Over the course of Tsui's sextet of films, Wong Fei-hung navigates China's tumultuous emergence as a nation-state amid the incursion of globalization, migrating both within China and overseas, so throughout the Cantonese Pacific. Film studies scholar Tony Williams analyzes the Once Upon a Time in China series as a depiction of the ongoing struggle to destabilize limiting national and geographic boundaries in the construction of Chinese-ness. Each strike that Master Wong deploys is thus an attack in the battle of representation, as he fights to symbolically assert a strong Chinese cultural identity as a transnational Cantonese subject. I'll talk a little bit now about the ethnographic aspect of this. Between 2008 and 2016, Master Wong's theme became an aspect of my fieldwork on music and martial arts in Toronto's Chinatown. Despite not being the focus of my research there, I was there studying the percussion music that's used to accompany lion dancing. But the Wong Fei-hung song was unavoidable. It was a fixture in karaoke. DVD shops all carried these films, and it was a fixture in kung fu demonstrations. But it also emanated from Chinese orchestras and even people's cell phones as ringtones. My Wing Chun Kung Fu teacher claimed that Cantonese people everywhere would know it. So it wasn't just martial arts people, it wasn't just people in Toronto, Cantonese people everywhere, he claims anyway. Several of my consultants at the Hong Luk Kung Fu Club, which is where I did most of my fieldwork, explained the ubiquity of the Wong Fei-hung song in nationalistic terms. One of them pronounced that the song was important because it was like a Chinese anthem. And then his wife immediately argued that the Wong Fei-hung song only sounded right in Cantonese, as compared to Mandarin, which is the official language of China, the PRC anyway. Another consultant longed to sing Master Wong's theme in karaoke, but he feared he wouldn't be able to give it the vigor required of a martial Chinese anthem. He then equivocated that actually it was mostly Cantonese, though, because of Wong Fei-hung's connections to Guangdong and the Hong Kong film industry. In order to get a larger sample size, I turned to internet ethnography. On the video websites YouTube and Yoku Tudo, I selected the top results for the Wong Fei-hung song using a number of different searches in both English and Chinese, and I selected them by total number of views, which amounted to nearly 8 million combined plays across the 2 sites. The videos included both Cantonese and Mandarin versions of James Wong's vocal interpretation of the song, and I examined over 2,500 comments in English and Chinese on 7 videos. But I'm just going to focus on the comments that are most relevant to this paper. In English, I found more remarks about the Wong Fei-hung song being an anthem, whereas in Chinese, the claims tended toward it being a Cantonese song with nationalistic flavor. English comments on the Cantonese version include statements such as, quote, If you consider yourself truly Chinese, then this is China's true anthem. Anyone who is Chinese and passionate of their heritage will instantly feel an unexplainable burning connection when hearing this song. Just some passionate words. And similarly, the most liked comment on a Mandarin version included nationalistic comments such as, quote, "I thought this was the China's national anthem," end quote. There was also anti-Mandarin, anti-PRC invective, however, which suggests a sense of resistance or ownership by Cantonese people. For example, someone wrote, quote, "Hong Kong is my country, we are not effing Chinese, long live Hong Kongese," end quote. And another commenter later quipped, quote, "F the Mandarin version," end quote. In Chinese responses, people got into slightly more detailed debates about language. Some of them observed that the song still sounded good in Mandarin and that it made the lyrics accessible to people who did not know Cantonese, which is fair enough. A lot more people speak Mandarin than Cantonese. Although only one person explicitly mentioned national anthems in the Chinese comments that I read, many comments showed a sense of this song being patriotic and nationalistic, but also distinctly Cantonese. On a video of the Cantonese version, one person wrote, quote, "This song is filled with patriotism," end quote, while another remarked that, quote, "Cantonese people are really patriotic," end quote. Such opinions hint at the ambivalence of a Cantonese transnation that is Chinese, but that always already exceeds China as a nation state. So to kind of give an overview of these comments, there was no simple consensus among online commenters, but a general pattern definitely emerged. And that was patriotic sentiment combined with either pro-Cantonese or anti-Mandarin sentiment. So I can't presume to draw universal conclusions from these kinds of statistics, but what it does do is it demonstrates that my fieldwork consultants' opinions are held much further beyond the Honglap Kung Fu Club. Furthermore, online remarks clarify feelings that make the Wong Fei-hung song more meaningful in Cantonese. A particularly helpful comment argued, quote, "The Cantonese version has more momentum. Moreover, the Cantonese version is more vivid, more rhyming," end quote. By rhyming, this commenter seemed to be referring to the alignment between lyrics and melody, which echoes my fieldwork consultant's view that only the Cantonese version sounded right. Based on the common practice of matching speech tone and melody in Cantopop, I expected that the Wong Fei-hung song would have a stronger connection to Cantonese than Mandarin and support my consultant's views. Sinitic languages are tonal, for those of you who don't know Chinese, meaning that the relative pitch, contour, and duration of words contribute to lexical meaning. Overall, there's a close alignment between the speech tone patterns of the Cantonese lyrics and the general Zoic melody. A notable exception is that when the same speech tone is repeated, the melody does not repeat the same pitch. And Bell Young has noticed a similar sort of rule of non-repetition in Cantonese opera examples. The Mandarin version, however, does not match speech tone with musical contour, which has two ramifications. First, some of the Chinese characters had to be changed to make the lyrics more intelligible. These changes make the meaning clearer in Mandarin, but they jettison some of the poetic qualities in the Cantonese original. That is to say, you can read Chinese characters with pronunciations from either Cantonese or Mandarin, but without the tonal information, it didn't make as much sense in Mandarin, so they had to change some of the characters. Second, there's something satisfying about the integration of Cantonese speech tones with Wong Fei-hung's melody, which is absent from the Mandarin version. While many Mandarin-speaking commenters online express patriotic sentiments about a man should self-strengthen, I contend that the song's long-standing prevalence in Cantonese culture, bolstered by the integration of speech tone and musical contour in the Cantonese version, contribute to a sense of unisonance that is unequaled in the Mandarin version. I'm going to play you a short video clip of the Wong Fei-hung song, so you can hear what this sounds like. This is from the first Once Upon a Time in China film. And I did a little transcription of that first couplet. And on the first line, you'll see the melody. The second line is an approximation of the Cantonese speech tones. And the third line is the Mandarin speech tones. And I very much look forward to Andrew Killick finishing his notation system, so I have something better to use for this, but I think you'll get the idea. If I just read it with a bit of rhythm to my speech, it should be fairly evident how closely the Cantonese follows and how the Mandarin really doesn't. So in Cantonese, the first couplet, O hei, O xiu man chong long, yi hu yi xing hong ya guang, pretty close. In Mandarin, a lot of it is actually the same tone over and over. 傲气面对万重浪，热血像那红日光. Not so close. And pardon my pronunciation. The scene that comes right before that video clip is the opening scene of Once Upon a Time in China, and it functions as a prologue, providing historical context for the rest of the film series and introducing that first appearance of A Man Should Self-Strengthen. So the films begin in the late 19th century, showing Wong Fei-hung visiting a Qing army general who's about to leave on a military voyage. The general complains about being sent away when there are problems at home, especially unequal treaties with foreign powers. He then requests that Wong Fei-hung form a civilian militia to help defend the nation. This brief dialogue sets up the historical situation of a decaying Qing dynasty and foreign aggression. It also mythologizes Wong Fei-hung and Kung Fu at the center of a proto-nationalist movement seeking Chinese self-strengthening, hence the name, A Man Should Self-Strengthen. Reformers, historically at that time period, believed that strong physical bodies would result in a body politic able to resist foreign incursion. The opening sequence thus establishes a central theme that is elaborated throughout the series, the negotiation of Chinese culture in modernity through Kung Fu as a tactic of resistance. The prologue concludes with the first appearance of A Man Should Self-Strengthen, the clip we just saw, which musically answers the call of the departing army general and plays on an ambiguity in the Chinese name of the labeled melody. As the film's opening credits roll, Wong Fei-hung is leading a group of men in Kung Fu practice. Their vigor shows that they have indeed strengthened themselves, and so the words of the Qing army general are being heeded, pointing to a dual meaning in Chinese for the song title, General's Ode. It can also be read as General's Command, and some scholars have translated it that way when they're writing in English, because the final character in the name, Ling, refers to an order or command in modern Chinese, but historically meant a type of song or ode. James Wong's lyrics, the traditional melody, the Wong Fei-hung character, and the opening scene of Once Upon a Time in China all converge to suggest an ode to self-strengthening upon the general's orders, thus turning ambiguity in the name into productive meaning. Music links the discourse of the prologue to Kung Fu as a means of re-establishing or establishing a new Chinese nation that is free from foreign control. This patriotism is not directed at any nation state, however, because it's what film critic Stephen Teo theorizes, quote, is better understood as an abstract kind of cultural nationalism, end quote. Although the lyrics of A Man Should Self-Strengthen don't explicitly mention martial arts or even China, it's clear from the intertextual association with Wong Fei-hung that Kung Fu is the recommended path to strength as a nation. Furthermore, experienced audiences already associate General's Ode with a martial ethos because of its consistent textual and contextual imagery in its usage as a labeled melody. This intertextual discourse therefore serves to link Wong Fei-hung's martial power to a will for self-determination, symbolically asserting an autonomous Chinese identity for transnational Cantonese subjects through music and martial arts. I'll conclude. It would be overstating my claim to suggest that the Wong Fei-hung song is the Cantonese anthem. Its capacity for unisonance, however, makes it an anthem, even if it's unofficial. The Master Wong meme continues to circulate through ever-increasing transnational flows and re-releases on successive media formats. The pervasiveness of General's Ode and its speech tone links in A Man Should Self-Strengthen offer unisonance for Cantonese people and thus the experience of an anthem. The Wong Fei-hung song connects receptive audiences to an imagined community that has heard, is hearing, will hear, and might even sing it. Once Upon a Time in China has enduring appeal despite the historical mise-en-scène because it deals with lasting issues of identity in the face of foreign influence. This narrative is attractive vis-a-vis China's emergence as a modern nation-state, but it also speaks to the risk of Cantonese being swallowed by the hegemony of Mandarin in the PRC. In terms of current political reality, China's national anthem is March of the Volunteers, and I think that's always sung in Mandarin, I could be wrong, which makes it the official anthem in Cantonese, Guangdong, Hong Kong, and Macau. Appropriately, the Wong Fei-hung song is in good company as an unofficial anthem because March of the Volunteers was originally a Chinese movie theme song too. Beyond this case study, I'm suggesting that unofficial anthems are important manifestations of transnations. With the recent rise of populist nationalism, a la Brexit and Trump, scholars must remain attentive to and critical of discourses that erase diversity or demonize others. An us versus them model isn't sustainable. Transnational flows increasingly stymie the possibility of race, ethnicity, culture, language, nationality, residency, and citizenship all being in alignment. That's pretty rare these days. Thinking about anthems for transnations assists important discussions on fractured postmodern belonging and the perpetual becoming of imagined communities. These are not stable entities. The members of a transnation are unlikely to have either a unified identity or an exclusive one. Their plurality speaks to a cosmopolitan world order where also and is the new normal. Thank you.